Hey guys, this is Kevin from News Rocky, and welcome back to another show coming to you live from downtown Norwich at the Pie Hops Studio. We're located at 80 Broadway. Pie Hops, the newest restaurant in downtown Norwich. Come on down, have some hops and pie, have a good old time down here. Now today, the show we have a special guest. We're going to have zoomed in for this COVID-safe sort of conversation with the former gubernatorial candidate for the Republican ticket in Connecticut for governor. This is Bob Stefanowski. Bob Stefanowski has been not just running for office back then when he lost to Lamont, he also has stayed involved, him and his wife Amy, doing a lot of great things like the Masks for Connecticut and Masks for Heroes. We'll be talking about that and a lot of other issues with Bob Stefanowski when we come back in a moment, only on News Rocky. And we're back, and here we are again. This is the News Rocky Show, and today we have a very special guest. I want to take a moment to sort of introduce our guest today. I feel very honored. This is now the first time, I think News Rocky is really official. We have reached a caliber of guest that has been something I dreamed about from the beginning. So basically I can walk off today, the stage, and know that I've hit my pinnacle. I have my very good friend and special guest, former gubernatorial candidate, future gubernatorial candidate, Bob Stefanowski on the line. Bob, how are you?
Kevin, thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Bob, for coming on, and appreciate you coming on for the viewers of News Rocky. And, you know, let's get it out of the way. News Rocky is sort of a provocative sort of show, and, you know, we get out of our lines a little bit, but we're going to have a nice conversation respectfully with you. How is the family, first of all? I know you have your whole family's involved in everything you do. How were the holidays for the Stefanowskis?
You know, it was quiet, I think, like everybody else, Kevin, but I've got 3 daughters. They were all home for the holidays with less distractions. So in a way, it's good to spend some quality time, get to know the family a little bit again, and we enjoyed it. So, but ready to get back to work.
Good stuff. So as I opened up with, you and your powerhouse partner, Amy Stefanowski, your wife, you know, when we had the COVID, and let's kind of go back up a little bit. I apologize. I'm jumping ahead. I'm excited. I've never really interviewed you. I've actually had Amy on once or twice, but I've never had the chance to have the famous Bob Stefanowski. So I'm like a giddy child right now, Bob. Sorry. But when you decided way back when to run for governor, let's go back to that point. What was going on in your mind? Why were you interested in putting yourself into this crazy world of politics?
Well, it's a bunch of things, Kevin. I think primarily is I love the state. I grew up in New Haven. I kind of won the lottery with my parents. Neither of them went to college, but they wanted to make sure that I did. My dad worked at the scoreboard at the Yale Bowl for 40 years, running the scoreboard, and I've been lucky. You know, I've worked hard, but I've been very fortunate to build a great career and a great family here. And I just don't know that the kids of today have that opportunity. Connecticut's been headed in the wrong direction for a while. We've had Democratic-led government for 40 years now, and it's been tax increase after tax increase. And I was at the point in my career, I don't want to have to get on a plane someday and go see my grandkids down in Florida with everybody leaving. And I don't think it'll be that hard to turn it around, but we got to start to use some common sense, and we got to start to use some fiscal discipline. And Amy and I have been fortunate to have a bit of a platform, and we've been trying to use it to help where we can.
So you obviously, your career, you're a business leader and a little bit with GE. Could you talk a little bit about that experience that prepared you to run for governor?
Yeah, I went to North Haven High School, came out of college, went to Fairfield University, met my wife Amy up at the Gold Building in Hartford. We were both working for Price Waterhouse. Lived in London for a couple of years with General Electric, was the CFO of UBS Investment Bank based in London, and have really done a lot of different things. I had never done politics before, Kevin. I know you were up in Hartford for a while. It is a completely different world. It takes some getting used to, but met a lot of really nice people out there across the state. People are hurting right now, Kevin. People are they want to stay in Connecticut, but many people can't afford it anymore. It's just becoming unaffordable to live here. and we got to do things to get back Connecticut what it used to be.
You know, I heard about the famous Bob Stefanowski, who was going to buck the system of the Republican Party, right? And I mean this with respect. And obviously back then, and Bob and I have had this conversation, I supported Tim Herbst during the campaigning for the primary, and got a chance to see you and witness you. And I remember distinctly, we were up at the VJ parade in Moosup, and in comes this blue Ford Ranger. And first of all, there's no way a giant man of your height at 6 foot, what are you, 6'10", 6'8"?
I wish 6'4". Yeah.
6'4", giant. Well, I'm 5'0", so I mean anybody over 5'7" is a giant to me. But you get out of this Ranger, if you remember. I remember the day distinctly. I was up there with Timmy and all of us getting ready for the march, and you get out of this truck just like you got jeans on, average guy. I'm like, this isn't the guy I heard about. Where's the limo? Where's the, you know what I mean? That's kind of what was being talked about, because you did come in unconditionally into the system. The next thing that fast forwards, Bob, I remember the actual the convention, and I remember you sitting outside the convention hall, and I remember I think you had like a plaid shirt on, shirt rolled up. You looked like an average guy I probably would have sat down at the coffee shop with. And I remember I was all suited up because, of course, I was working the room for my guy Tim. And I said, how in the hell is this guy going to even have a chance when he's not in the room? And I remember actually that entire fiasco, if you remember the night, I did leave there saying Bob Stefanowski is going to be our governor, or at least our candidate going out of there. We look like a foolish party. And I'm not trying to criticize. There's a lot of great people. What do you think about the party in Connecticut right now as far as can we rebuild this party to a point where we can get a governor elected as a Republican?
You know, I think we can, Kevin. There's a lot of great people in the RTCs across the state. There's a lot of great people on State Central. I've actually got to know them a lot better after I lost to Governor Lamont over the past couple of years. We've been spending a lot of time on Mass and helping some of the local candidates out. And we absolutely have a shot because people are tired of what's going on in Connecticut. And obviously there's a lot of noise in Washington right now, but I think one of the things people learned last time around is local politics is what it's all about. And the people who are seeing it right now with Governor Lamont having this emergency authority for coming up close to a year now, what happens locally is as important, if not more important than what goes on in Washington. I think people are paying attention. If we put up some good candidates, the municipals are the next step this fall. We got to do what we can to get some good municipal leaders in there, and then we'll see what happens in the statewide elections in 2022. Did
you ever envision yourself being this activist? I mean, you're really, I'm not trying to paint a picture, but you are active in really supporting people, right? And so have you ever envisioned, you and Amy, I mean, retirement, was it going to be reading books and walking the beach? Or was it going to be, standing in line for hours, handing masks out, volunteering your own time?
I'll tell you what, the mask thing was one of the most rewarding things we've done. There's a couple, and I know you helped at a couple of the events. You gave us some free sanitizers for one of the events. You were amazingly helpful. We appreciate that. But I still remember one event where a woman drove up. I think she had waited in line about a half hour, and she drove up, and I think we were giving out 5, and she asked if she could have another 5, and we're like, of course, and said, I've got leukemia, I'm high risk, and I've been wearing the same mask for 5 days, and those are the types of things that really make it worthwhile. And people forget now, early on in this crisis, there was no PPE out there. Right. You had nursing home attendants wearing plastic bags over themselves. You had people going into high-risk situations with no PPE at all. So we had a nice partnership with the Jewish Federation of Greater New Haven. WFSB, Channel 3 in Hartford was great. You and your organization were great. And it was really an example. I mean, we got a lot of the credit for it, Amy and I, but we just organized it. There were a lot of people all across the state who stepped up and really filled the need when there was a need out there not being addressed, Kevin.
Well, you certainly did, and I think, again, I think Amy, it was a platform for her because she became this rock star through this process. I don't know, and I don't want, she's just so much energy and such a open conversationalist. Do you find that she helps with your platform when you're out there? I mean, it's nice to have that partner with you, right?
Yeah, she's terrific, Kevin, and I know you've had her on. I appreciate that, but she's the type of person you talk to her for 30 seconds and you feel like you've known her forever.
100%.
She just has an amazing ability to connect with people. She is one of the most compassionate and people who wants to help that I've ever seen. And it's a good partnership. We've done other stuff in terms of turkey, giveaways, and we did a lot around the holidays with respect to toys for kids. We've helped out a couple of the Boys and Girls Clubs in Bridgeport. And, just having run for office, you kind of know a lot of people. I'll tell you, we know a heck of a lot more after the last year and a half to 2 years across the state, which has been really, really rewarding thing to do.
Now, you just also got an award from the NAACP here in Connecticut. Is that correct?
Yeah, we did. What a great group of young people. It was the NAACP Waterbury Branch Youth Council.
And what was it? Tell the listeners a little bit about that, Bob.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the word is young adults, kids, but high school age kids that just want to help. And they spent a couple of days with us packing these masks into the bags we used to hand them out. When our event was done, they walked through the community to get masks out to people that didn't have cars and couldn't get to the drive-through event. They handed out turkeys, and just really, I mean, you talk to these young adults, they're just right on target, and trying to help out their community, and that's what it's all about. So we're going to stay active, Kevin. We're going to keep doing what we can, and just been probably one of the most rewarding things. Running for governor was neat, but actually being able to help people directly and see the results of that is pretty special.
So you're out here, and let me ask you, you campaigned obviously during the election. You ran against Ned Lamont. Ned Lamont had lots and lots of money, a lot of, sort of insider, as you say. The state legislature has been Democratic controlled for 40 plus years here in Connecticut. I had the fortune, as you mentioned, to serve. But I will tell you that it seemed like there was an energy building for Bob Stefanowski. When you look back, is there anything that you say, well, maybe I should have done different or I could have done different moving forward?
I think I wish we had more time. The primary is late. I think it was August 12th that year, and you've got an election in November. And the day after we won the primary, we were 12 points down to Governor Lamont. The last poll by Quinnipiac had us up 2 points. So the momentum was absolutely with us. I think if we had had a little bit more time, it would have helped. And quite honestly, we could have had a better ground game. You and I have talked about this offline, Kevin. The Democrats did a very, very good job of getting the vote out. Mm-hmm. And I think one thing as a party we need to do better as Republicans is have that ground game, have offices throughout the state. We were trying to put them together on August 13th, the day after we won, and that's too late.
100%.
We've got to be better as a party getting that ground game and getting the message out there.
Now, I know personally, Bob, we have Bob Stefanowski, former gubernatorial candidate and future. I'm going to put it out there. I don't care what you say. You're running again. We all know it. And we support him, 100% endorsed by me. But I will tell you, and this is going to jeopardize my future interviews with other players, but whatever it is, it is. I do think, though, that the next election is really going to be critical because Republicans need to win with Democratic support. I find that the events I went to, you have an amazing, diverse group of supporters, and many of those individuals are Democratic, some Democratic families that are famous in Connecticut. How do you do that? How are you pulling that off?
Well, first of all, for the record, we're obviously thinking about running, but we haven't made a formal decision. But we got close. It was 40,000 votes. We won 140 of 169 towns. Where we really got outnumbered was in the cities, Hartford, Bridgeport, and New Haven. And I just recently had an editorial in the Wall Street Journal that pointed out some of the facts about Connecticut cities and some suggestions to improve it. And the reaction from Democrats was swift and critical. And they rely on the cities as their core voter base. Mm-hmm. But when you look at the facts, Kevin, the policies of the last 15 to 20 years have not helped our friends and family in the big cities. You've got Hartford, which we spent over $17,000 per student per year. And 80% of the kids in Hartford and other school districts don't test at the age-appropriate level in math. So you're spending $17,000, and the kids don't have the right skill sets in math. 25% of the kids in Hartford aren't graduating from high school in 4 years. Mm-hmm. So I don't think throwing more money at these problems has worked.
Now, Bob, don't you understand, though, Bob, I want to say this because I'm here. I understand exactly what you're saying. But those folks that are on the other side that don't want to see you be successful, it sounds like you're picking on this you're actually talking about exposing and solving problems. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing it because I care about the cities and I care about our friends and family who live there. And Connecticut needs the cities to be successful. I mentioned earlier, I worked in Hartford in 1984. We used to go out to work. It was a vibrant downtown. Companies were moving in. We were the insurance capital of the world. You remember New Haven? We had the New Haven Coliseum with great sport, with great concerts. We had the Yale Bowl with the New York Giants playing there. There's no reason we can't get back to that. But unless we start to do things different, it's not going to get back. And Democrats have been following the same story year after year after year. And I'm telling you, whether you live in the suburbs, the cities, or wherever in Connecticut, people are getting tired of it, which is why I'm optimistic about the municipal elections coming up this year and certainly the statewide elections in 2 years.
It's so appropriate. You know, our good friend Mark Boughton, who obviously now has a new appointment. I'll get into that after on my opinions of that. I think it was very creative and just, worthy. Mark is a brilliant guy in government. But the one thing he's always said, and I've been at many events where I spoke with him, we have to build our bench. We have to build our bench, and our bench is going to be not just the next generation of who serves. It actually builds that foundation for the entire structure. Now, Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter to me. I'm kind of I'm getting into a world of like just accepting what's right versus wrong. It seems like the Republican conservative approach can fix Connecticut's path. What do you think is the number one problem that is the challenge to Connecticut's success as far as the governor facing either this governor or you if you were in the seat?
Well, what I hear most part of is about affordability, that people just can't afford to live here anymore. They're not moving to Florida because they want to get out of Connecticut. They want to get away from their friends and family. They're moving because their property taxes are up. They're moving because you got a large sales tax. They're moving because we've got an income tax. They're moving for some of the nuisance factors, like you've got to pay to have a plastic bag, or when you register your car license, you've got to pay a park tax, whether you go there or not. The fact that Governor Lamont now wants to put in a 17-cent per gallon income tax, paid family medical leave, where you've got 0.5% of your pay now being withheld for a year for one of the most expensive paid family medical leave programs in the nation. And these things, they start to add up to the point where you reach that inflection point, which is, I got to go. And unless we start to make Connecticut more affordable, we're going to lose more and more people. People talk about the influx from New York City into Connecticut due to COVID, which is fine. But we're still the fourth highest migration rate out of Connecticut of any state in the country. So what the Democrats have been doing is not working. And it's time for a change.
Now, you think Connecticut right now in the response to COVID, I'm not trying to heighten the conversation, but if you were in office, would you have handled anything differently other than the governor who's sitting in office today, Lamont?
I think there's pieces of it he's handled well. I think the biggest regret I would hope that he has, he didn't get the PPE out there early enough. And he also didn't concentrate on the high-risk population, the people in nursing homes. That's where the bulk of our deaths are coming from. Oh, sorry,
that's all right. I love that too.
The bulk of the deaths are coming from. If we had gotten the PPE out earlier to the nursing homes, for whatever reason, which sounds totally counterintuitive, moving infected patients into branches of nursing homes, which makes no sense whatsoever.
Right.
You look at our death rate, Kevin, we're fourth highest death rate per capita in the country. So I think if there's one metric that I'm pretty disappointed with how this administration handled it, is protecting our most vulnerable.
Do you think this administration in hiring consultants coming in, do you have any opinion on that? Have you looked into it?
Well, listen, Kevin, I'm not a big fan of it. You were in the legislature. I mean, that's the job of the legislators. I mean, if you're going to reopen Connecticut, who's better qualified to do that? The people that we've elected to serve us in Hartford, or out-of-state consultants that you're going to spend $2 million on? And the other side of it is that, 1 in 3 businesses in Connecticut have failed. What if we had taken that $2 million and given it to restaurants?
True story.
Or used it to stimulate the local economy? So I just don't agree with some of the decisions. It doesn't seem like we're any more disciplined around cost than we were pre-pandemic. And in times like this, the first thing you got to look at is your spending levels. Just like if you're a family and you lose your job or something happens, the first thing you go to is how can I reduce my discretionary spending? And they're just not willing to do it up there, Kevin.
Interesting. So on with us today is Bob Stefanowski, kind of recapping a lot of different topics, including his run for the last governor's race and possibly considering the future race. Also, his and his wife Amy, their energy spent towards giving back to Connecticut residents. Do you have any stories of people you've met along the way that just stand out? I mean, somebody, you talked about the lady with the leukemia, but other stories even during the campaign where, you know, people are like, you must have even grown friends out of this, people you never imagined. A little bit of that.
Yeah, the other one that stands out is we had our last initiative was Mass for Kids, and we handed out youth mass in the August-September timeframe for the kids going back to school. And the number of teachers that came into the line, and again, very gently, very graciously said, can I have 20 to 25 from my class? You realize how dedicated some of these public school teachers are. You know, they're not worried about themselves. They hop in their car, they wait in line for 30 minutes. They're worried about their kids who may show up, who either couldn't find a mask, couldn't afford a mask, or just was, you know, left at home on the kitchen table. And putting their students first, so they had a supply for them. And again, I'm sorry I keep saying it, but it was one of the most rewarding things to see the look on a teacher's face when you're helping her or him out to start off the school year on the right foot.
Awesome. So those are the good side of things. What's some of the negative from politics you've gotten? I mean, you are in the political game. I myself can tell you from serving even locally as a selectman, first selectman, and then state senator or state representative. You get the experience where you got 49-51, the rule, right? 51 loves you one day, 49 loves you the next day. It's has that experience affected you at all?
You know, I think you toughen up. The latest example is this Wall Street Journal editorial where I got a lot of calls from people in Hartford and the city saying, thank goodness somebody has actually pointed out the issues that are here, because we can't continue to gloss it over. And we need to do stuff to create jobs, and we need to do stuff to fix the economy. That was one side. The other side was largely personal attacks that Bob doesn't know what he's talking about, or, you know, Bob's, you know, whatever. And nobody disputed the facts. I mean, the facts are the facts. When you've got an 80% level of kids that don't test at the right level in math, you can't dispute that fact. So none of the responses from Mayor Bronin or John Larson weighed in. None of them were disputing the facts. What they turned to are personal attacks and trying to avoid the issue. And I think you got to keep the discussion focused on the facts. But you're right, Kevin. I get 51 positive, and then, you know, you pick up the paper and there's 49% negative, and you just got to get used to dealing with it.
It's a coin flip at times, but you know, you talk about the same cast of characters, 169 towns in Connecticut, 3.5 million people. You know, you have these cities, and one of the biggest issues you know, when I was serving, I believe it was maybe for the baseball stadium at the time, and then it followed right up with a bailout that Mayor Bronin was actually looking for $50 million. I think it was under Governor Malloy. This has been the bad habits that keep on coming to the legislature, and unfortunately, it has been controlled by one-party rule. The problem going forward for anyone like yourself is how you can get into the cities, into these areas. Like you said, you lost by 40,000 votes. Some people think you should have kept counting, but that's another story. But they think you maybe had 40,000 extra votes somewhere else. But the point is, in these cities, where is the plan? How can you take these cities in this next upcoming election? Not just Bob Stefanowski. Say you're consulting the next gubernatorial candidate for the Republican ticket.
Well, I think if you go into the cities under the impression of how do I get more votes, it's never going to happen. And I think you need to do some of what Amy and I have done, which is, you know, right after the election, we started helping where we can. And, you know, you got to go into it. How do I help? And how do I add some value here? And if you do that, there's probably going to be an ancillary benefit that you know who the players are. And you've got some goodwill where you've done it. And but that can't be your primary motivation. I tell you, when we did a turkey drive in Bridgeport, we drove my truck up. We had 50 turkeys in the back of it, and we just started handing them out on the street. That had nothing to do with politics. It really didn't.
Now, how was the reaction?
The look on people's eyes when they came up and all of a sudden they had a turkey dinner 24 hours before they weren't going to have one. It means a lot to people. And I just think there's no substitute for spending time so that people get to know you and people get to know what you're capable of.
Well, so we're talking about a lot of different topics with Bob Stefanowski, talking about his experiences, personally what got him into the political arena, him and his wife Amy, the giving back to the communities in Connecticut, continuing to do that. Some sort of politicians, when they run, they don't get elected, they're not successful, they sort of run off into the night. You did the total opposite. You just dug in and said, what can we do for Connecticut? And you stay active. Do you find that you're winning over people that even maybe didn't support you in the first time? They're reaching out to you saying, really, Bob, we need you. We need you. Are you getting that a lot these days?
I've had a fair number of that, Kevin. A lot of people saying, hey, you're you're a little bit different guy than what was characterized on Ned Lamont's attack ad #5. I also think there really are no rules in politics anymore. The tradition is when you lose, you go away. And when I started to stay active, a lot of the people on the other side of the aisle said, Bob, you're supposed to go away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're not. I mean, especially if you're positioned to help people out, you've got an obligation to do that. When we campaigned the first time around, we went up on TV very early and everybody said, well, you're not supposed to do that. We bypassed the convention. We went directly to the voters and everybody said, you're not supposed to do that. Well, in today's internet environment and everything changing so quickly, what I've learned and Amy have learned is you got to go with your gut. And I don't really care what people say. If we think it's going to help and we can do some good, we don't care what the quote traditional rules are, because following the rules of politics have not helped Connecticut Republicans, and we need to start doing things different.
Well put, Bob, and I appreciate the kind of clarity there. We're going to probably go another 5 or 10 minutes and respect your time. I know you're a busy man and get you back to doing the good work that you and Amy are doing. What do you think right now is the biggest challenge for the youngest generation, the young generation? Let's say they're going to college this year, and in 4 years or 6 years or 8 years when they're actually out and they're degreed, what is it going to be, or they're actually right into the workspace? What is the biggest challenge for that young generation coming up, you think?
Well, a lot of it's jobs, Kevin, and I think the default is always go to college, and that's kind of how I was brought up. But when you look at the skills that you can get out, especially in Connecticut, some of the great trade schools that we have, and these kids coming out of trade schools, they've got 2, 3, 4 job offers, because the mid-sized businesses in Connecticut, they're looking for basic engineering skills. So you don't come out $100,000 or $200,000 in debt, and you've got a job immediately. So I think we should be doing more to help our trade schools expand, provide more opportunities for young people. I'm a big fan of having, degrees that actually have some application. So if you do go to college, make sure that you're getting some skills, that some life skills. And I just think the whole secondary education needs to be looked at. The price of tuition, even at UConn, it's hard to afford some of these schools. You come out with so much debt. And I don't know that we're preparing kids the best that we can. And a lot of these kids could do much better by getting a tangible set of skills out of trade school in 18 months or 2 years and getting out into the work world.
Very well put. And I think that's a conversation that up to a few years ago, the conversation only lied with college, college, college. You have to, if you're a parent, you have to be embarrassed if you're not trying to get your child into the best college you can spend as much money on it, whatever degree. And how many kids come out of college and they actually don't even work in their degree program. Let me ask you, in particularly with the family nucleus, did the family get excited about you running? Was it some pushback? I mean, you don't have to identify which member, but did you have 100% support, or did you have to win that over within your own family?
My family's terrific. I know everybody says that about their family, but they've been terrific. I got 3 daughters, 18 through 26, and they were a little, I don't know, tentative about it, I guess is the right word. The attack ads are hard because your kids have to see it. Their friends at school see it. And 98% of the attack ad is absolutely false, and the other 2% is spin. But the other thing that they really liked seeing was the process, particularly after we won the primary and we were out there in groups of people and you could speak to people and you saw the enthusiasm, and it was just great exposure for, my youngest was 16 at the time. What a terrific exposure for a 16-year-old to travel across the state and be part of that. So despite the fact that we lost, I would do it again. I would have done it again in a heartbeat, just because you learn so much. It's risky. As you know, Kevin, running for office is risky, but it's really, really rewarding at the same time. And it's been one of those great life experiences for the family.
Awesome. So, what would you tell someone that's sitting on a bench right now, and the municipal elections are coming up, and say they're in a small town, of whatever town you want to pick, out of the 169 in Connecticut? What would you tell that person, Democrat or Republican, and they're like, scratching their head, I want to get involved. Why should that person want to get involved in their local government?
Well, first of all, I think you owe it to yourself. If you think you can add value, a lot of people are very risk averse, which is fine. You don't want to go crazy with risk, but take a little chance. Again, Kevin, you did it when you ran for office. Second of all, if we're going to improve Connecticut again, whether you're Democrat or Republican, and you think you've got some ideas and some energy and some resources to help improve it, you should be doing it. Again, I was really fortunate. I got a lot of good breaks. I had great parents, and there is a sense when you get to, the point of your life that I'm in, or younger, and you've got an ability and a willingness to give back, you've got to do it. And I don't think you regret it. I don't regret running. I'm sure you don't regret your time in public service.
Nope.
We're hoping you get back in at some point, but you got to take chances in life, and you got to try to help people. So I would think really hard if you've got an inclination. And there's much more upside than there is downside.
How do you see us coming out of COVID? I know I'm jumping around. The ADD's kicking in for Kevin here, and again, we have Bob Stefanowski on with us today. But the coming out of the COVID, I should have asked this when we were in that lane. Where do you see us coming out of COVID, and how is that going to turn the economy around that you mentioned earlier? Restaurants closing across the state. Where do you see this kind of going forward, and how do we solve these problems?
Well, I'm really worried about the economy. Connecticut, it was the only state to not recover the jobs from the last recession. And this was even before the pandemic hit.
Mm-hmm.
So we're at a disadvantage going in. You now have over 1,600 restaurants that have closed. You've got 1 in 3 businesses in Connecticut that have closed. Depending on how you measure it, the unemployment rate is somewhere between 10% and 12%, much higher than the national average in Connecticut. And the early view of the legislature is that we're doing the exact wrong thing to help it. They want to throw a gas tax on. Yesterday, tolls came up. Believe it or not, they're going to put tolls back onto the table after all that happened last year. You're getting 0.5% of your pay taken for the paid family medical leave program. We should be doing the exact opposite, which is give some people some tax relief. One of the things that Governor Lamont campaigned on was he guaranteed he was going to cut people's property taxes. Well, where's that? That hasn't happened in the first 2 years. So we have to create some relief to make Connecticut more affordable to get through this and start to create jobs. And the policies that I've seen so far put up for this new legislative session are not going to do that.
So when you look at the reaction from the governor and sort of talking about, one of the concerns you outlined was maybe the way he moved the most vulnerable population, and this is questionable in other states. We see in New York and some other states. But do you think that any of the things that are taking place now are really benefiting? Should we be coming back off these restrictions? Should we be allowing more businesses to open up in a safe way? Have any opinion on that, Bob?
I think he's been very inconsistent, Kevin. In fairness, it's a once in a generation issue. But when you've got liquor stores and groceries open, which is fine, but then people can't go to their place of worship on the weekend, that doesn't seem overly consistent to me. When you've got people all over the place, but then on Thanksgiving the advice is to not have more than 10 people in your own home. At a certain point, you got to protect people's liberties. We're in a democracy. Governor Lamont has had, a monarchy for 9 months, and it's just not right. People forget he's had emergency power since March. He's had power that's unprecedented.
Would you have taken that responsibility on, Bob? Would you have used that same authority, or would you have wanted to work with the legislature who was there to represent the people?
I think you've got to take input, Kevin. And when you're making a decision about whether somebody can go to their house of worship on the weekend, people should have input into that. When you're making a decision whether your kids can go to school or not, people should have input into that. And the legislature was kind of kicked out of the building in March and then never let back in. And that's what democracy is all about, electing people that can go represent our interests. And that hasn't happened since March. And if we're not careful, he's going to extend those authorities again. The deadline comes up in February, and he's going to make a run at extending it again.
You think he's going to extend them
step
again?
back.
You think he wants to extend these powers again?
I don't have any inside information, but
Gut feeling.
my gut, tells me that he and the Democrat-controlled legislature will try to do it. Yes.
Okay. Well, again, we have Bob Stefanowski on with us talking about the Connecticut landscape, his run for governor. Ned Lamont now serving for governor. Possibly Bob Stefanowski considering running for governor here in Connecticut again. If he wants to make some people happy, he will. And we also had the opportunity to also talk about all the inside sort of, what's going on in Bob Stefanowski's life. We appreciate you sharing with us all the intimate details. Bob, just in closing, I want to give you a chance. Where can people find information about you? If there's things going on, causes you're out there pushing for, if you want to lead them in that direction, let some of the listeners of News Rocky know.
Yeah, the best I do is I send out periodic emails. I give my personal email out, which is bob.stefanowski@gmail.com. And I get a lot of great feedback. I respond to every email, and if anybody has anything on their mind, I'm happy to help. I appreciate your time, Kevin. You got a great audience. You're doing a great job for the state, so keep moving. I think.
Well, some would question that, Bob. I don't know if everyone in the state appreciates what Kevin's talking about, but it is what it is. News Rocky's going to do what we do. Listen, we would love to have you and Amy down in the studio someday. I want to show you this brand new studio. Actually popped up in downtown Norwich, and we're actually expanding already. We've been here for less than 3 months, and we're already looking at building out a 5,000 square foot facility. So wow. Things are happening fast. Love to have you up here. Again, Bob Stefanowski, thank you for coming on today, and we appreciate you being a part of the panel. We'll see you soon.
Okay, Kevin. Have a good week. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. And so as we are going to finish up this episode with News Rocky here, our special guest, Bob Stefanowski, wanted to respect his time. We want to say very much appreciative that he came on the show. We've had Amy Stefanowski, his wife, on. We got into some of the conversations about prepping up and why he wanted to run for governor the first time, and hopefully why he wants to run for governor the next time. He talked about his connection with people. The reason you step up and stand up and run for an election is because you want to give back to the people. See, I see in Connecticut all too often people running for office, and when you actually see them appear, it's right around that same time that the nominations for their positions come out. They get nominated by their local Republican or Democratic parties. Next thing you know, they need donors. They have to have donations. So they come knocking on your door again. They start asking you to help them out and benefit them and help them because they need your name and they need $5 so they can qualify. This is when you see the politicians come out. It happens every couple years here in Connecticut. We have the state senators and state representatives. Every 4 years, you have a gubernatorial race, a lieutenant governor running. This is how the whole process works. But each and every term, each and every election, these same people come knocking on your door. Do you see them out handing turkeys out in Bridgeport, just on a street? Do you see them handing masks out to people who are in need during the COVID situation? Do you see the people out there doing that? See, this is the unique part about Bob Stefanowski. And now I'm not here to say that there are not great candidates that are going to consider to run. Heck, Themis Claridis is one of my favorite bosses I ever had. And we all know Themis, when you do come on and we talk about it, you can yell at me as much as you want. I am ready and prepared to endorse Bob Stefanowski, but I'm also listening. I'm listening to each one of those folks who are out there who want to run for that position so I can be informed and make the best final decision possible. Bob Stefanowski talked about how he would handle things if he was in the governor's seat. He certainly pointed out that the executive powers, which is very unique, folks, what that means for Governor Lamont is in Connecticut, he does not have to ask for permission for anything. He can pass laws, he can push forward policy, he could take away your Second Amendment rights, he could squander taxable money, he can do whatever he wants. He is presumed to be the king of Connecticut. Now, I don't think Bob Stefanowski firmly answered. I don't think he would follow that policy. I think he would want to have the legislature, who was elected to represent the people, have their word and have their say. Unfortunately, in today's world, it's about government control. See, when you look at somebody like Bob Stefanowski in comparison to Amy Stefanowski, his wife, these are two dominant personalities, one strong in the policy making, one strong in the outward bubbly connection to people. And that combination, that team, I have not seen in any candidates on the Republican or Democratic ticket ever in Connecticut, at least in my experience, and I'm 51 years old. You can go back to John Rowland and his wife, and she was out there, but that was all a game behind the scenes anyways. John Rowland was a liar. But this now, the time we have with Bob Stefanowski, we have a real opportunity where we have a real individual. This guy has worked in high office. He's been the CEO, CFO of major companies. He's coming back he doesn't need to do this. He wants to do it. And guys, when you're out there and you're thinking about it, ladies and gentlemen, when you're thinking about what can I do? I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. Step up and sign up and get involved. Go out and find out what you can do, how you can serve your local community. Can you get on a board or a commission? Can you start to get engaged and involved? Because you know what you're doing right now is you're sitting home and you're with your armchair and you're Monday morning quarterbacking the system, just like I do right now. I've been in the system, and I can tell you how corrupt the system is, and I know why most people don't want to get involved in the system, because each time you get introduced, you see the corruption within. And we have that problem here in Connecticut as well. Bob talked a little bit about the 40-plus years of Democratic control in the House and the Senate. And if you don't think that kind of policy making is a problem, look at the amount of taxes. Look at the debt service that Connecticut has. Look at the spending that goes on wasted. I was in Hartford and stood up and talked about all kinds of reform, finance reform, pension reform. I'm a beneficiary of a pension. I'm not turning my back on the obligation, and neither will Bob Stefanowski. I know for a fact he said we will honor the obligations to the union workers in Connecticut. See, but what was distorted by now Governor Lamont, candidate Lamont, and his team was that this guy, Bob Stefanowski, was going to destroy unions. Not the case. He'll get the message out next time. You know what else I heard? That there's not enough involvement and connection with Republicans in the cities. I got to tell you, folks, if you heard what Bob Stefanowski was just talking about, he's committed to understanding that there's a broken bridge. And he is willing to walk that bridge and solve that problem. See, I don't see that in any Democrat or Republican candidates out there. Bob Stefanowski certainly answered that question today for me. Guys, you were listening to the News Rocky Show today. We're winding down here on what I think is another good show. I think we had a great time talking with Bob Stefanowski. We wanted to respect his time. Sometimes we'll have a guest on for an hour, sometimes a half hour or so. He did explain to me that he had a lot of meetings, but he fit us in, and he's planning on coming back on the show. Hopefully we'll have Amy with him, his wife. Again, great team. They're out there doing the thing for Connecticut, handing the masks out and doing all this amazing energy, and they're doing it for one reason. You're going to think, the cynical folks out there will think it's for the wrong reason. Go ahead. I won't change your mind. They're doing it for the right reason because they care. And believe it, it's so hard to find in real politicians, people that want to be elected. They care. I can tell you, I've looked in Bob's eyes. Even though he's 6'4", I looked up in his eyes, and I seen the care, the concern, and the love for his state. He could leave and go anywhere. He can afford to move anywhere. He chose to stay in Connecticut. He chose to fight and try to win and try to fight for the people of Connecticut as a governor. I think he's going to do it next time. Guys, thanks for tuning in to the News Rocky Show. Each and every day, Monday through Friday, we come to you. The show is going to be broadcast out on obviously the Facebook Live you're watching now, also on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Play. We got an app coming out soon. News Rocky's taking off. Big things in 2021 for News Rocky. Guys, tune in tomorrow. I believe tomorrow's show will be, I don't know yet. I'll talk to you then. News Rocky.